I stared at the $42,000 invoice from Mountain Vista Resort. My signature sat at the bottom, right next to the line that read 50th Anniversary Celebration, Douglas and Patricia Chambers Family Reunion. 3 months of planning. $42,000 for the weekend rental, catering, activities coordinator, and the photographer Patricia insisted we needed to capture the memories. The memories they made without me. I found out on a Thursday morning. Not from my daughter Patricia. Not from my son-in-law Graham. I found out from Sheila Morrison, my neighbor of 15 years, who showed me the Facebook photos while I was taking out the recycling. Douglas, these are beautiful. How was the resort? Patricia looked absolutely radiant in that dress. I took her phone. There was Patricia, 48 years old, wearing the emerald dress I'd watched my late wife Susan help her pick out for prom 30 years ago. There was Graham with his arm around their kids, my grandchildren Mackenzie and Owen. There was the ice sculpture I'd approved, the string quartet, the sunset dinner on the terrace overlooking Lake Louise. And there, in the corner of one photo, was the banner, celebrating 50 years, the Chambers legacy. When did you get back? Sheila asked. I didn't go. Her smile died. What? I wasn't invited, Sheila. I walked back inside before she could respond. My hands were shaking. I set my coffee mug on the counter and just stood there in my kitchen. The kitchen where Patricia had learned to make her grandmother's butter tarts, where we'd celebrated every Christmas morning, where Susan and I had told her we were going to be grandparents for the first time. My phone sat on the counter. No missed calls, no texts, nothing. I picked it up and dialed Patricia's number. It rang 4 times. Hey, Dad. What's up? What's up? Like it was any other Thursday. I just saw Sheila, I said. My voice was steady, too steady. She showed me photos from the weekend. Silence. Then, oh, that's what you have to say? Oh? Dad, I can explain. When exactly were you planning to tell me that my 50th anniversary celebration happened without me? It wasn't like that. Her voice had that edge it got when she was backed into a corner. Graham's parents were coming in from Halifax, and you know how you and Donald don't get along. I've known Donald for 23 years, Patricia. We play golf twice a month. Well, it was complicated. We thought it would be easier this way. Less stress for everyone. Less stress. I'd written the check 3 months ago, $42,000. Patricia had called me on a Tuesday evening, voice all bright and enthusiastic. Dad, I have the most amazing idea for your anniversary. You and Mom would have been married 50 years this June. We should celebrate. As a family. She'd sent me the resort brochure, showed me the package options, asked which menu I preferred, the cedar planked salmon or the Alberta beef tenderloin. I'd chosen both. Let people have options, I'd said. The thing is, Dad, she'd said during that call, her voice dropping into that careful tone, the deposit is pretty steep. Graham and I are still recovering from Owen's university tuition, and with Mackenzie's wedding coming up next year, I'd known where it was going. I always knew. How much is the deposit, sweetheart? $15,000. But Dad, you don't have to. Send me the booking information. I'll take care of it. Because that's what I did. That's what I'd always done. The final payment had been due 2 weeks before the event. Patricia had called again. Dad, I hate to ask, but the final invoice is $27,000, and Graham just found out he needs a root canal, and I'll wire it today, I'd said. And I had. $42,000 total for a celebration of my marriage. That happened without me. Patricia, I said into the phone, my voice very quiet now. Did you ever plan to invite me? Of course we did. But then things got complicated, and Graham thought what? He thought it might be awkward. You know, celebrating Mom when she's not here anymore. Susan had been gone for 6 years. 6 years of me learning to cook for one, learning to sleep in an empty bed, learning to make decisions without asking, "What do you think, dear?" to the woman who wasn't there to answer. So you took my money and had a party about my marriage without me because it might be awkward? You're twisting it, Dad. We were honoring Mom. We shared stories about her, looked at old photos. I have stories about her too, Patricia. I was married to her for 44 years. I know that, but did Mackenzie ask where I was? Did Owen? Another pause. Longer this time. They were told you weren't feeling well. I hung up. My hands were still shaking. I looked around my kitchen, at the table where Susan and I had our morning coffee for 4 decades. at the window where she'd grown herbs in small pots, at the photos on the refrigerator, Patricia's graduation, the grandkids as babies, family Christmases. In every single one of them, I'd been the one writing the checks. Patricia's wedding 23 years ago, $35,000. Dad, Graham and I want to start our marriage right, debt-free. The down payment on their house in Mount Royal, $80,000. Dad, it's such a good investment. Calgary's real estate is booming. Mackenzie's private school, $12,000 a year for 6 years. Dad, the public schools just aren't the same anymore. Owen's university tuition, full ride at UBC, $60,000 over 4 years. Dad, he got accepted. Can you imagine? Your grandson at UBC. The kitchen renovation 3 years ago when Patricia said their home was falling apart, $45,000. The family trip to Hawaii 2 years ago because the kids need to see the world, $18,000. The new SUV last year because their van was on its last legs. I'd co-signed the loan, $28,000, that I ended up paying when Graham's business opportunity fell through. I walked to my office, the small room at the back of the house that used to be Susan's craft room. I kept my files there now. Investment statements, banking records, a ledger I'd started keeping 5 years ago, after Susan died, and I'd realized I needed to track things more carefully. I pulled out the file, labeled Patricia, Family Support. The numbers went back 23 years. The total, with interest calculated at the conservative rate my accountant had suggested, came to $467,000, nearly $500,000. And they'd celebrated my anniversary without me. I sat at my desk until the sun started going down. Then I picked up my phone and made a call. Bernard? It's Douglas Chambers. I need to revise my estate plan. Bernard Whitmore had been my lawyer for 30 years. He'd handled Susan's will. He knew the situation. Of course, Douglas. What changes are we making? All of them. I met with Bernard the following Tuesday. His office downtown had a view of the Bow River. I'd always liked that view. Reminded me of the summers. Susan and I would pack up Patricia and drive to the mountains, find a quiet spot by a river, and just exist together. I've reviewed your current will, Bernard said, adjusting his reading glasses. Currently, your estate is divided as follows. Patricia receives 60%, including this house, and the majority of your investment portfolio. Your sister Margaret receives 20%. The remaining 20% is split between various charities. I want to change it. To what distribution? Patricia gets nothing. Bernard set down his pen. Douglas, I need to ask, is this an emotional response to a recent event, or is this something you've carefully considered? I told him about the anniversary celebration. I showed him my ledger. I explained the pattern. 23 years of requests. 23 years of me saying yes because I was her father and that's what fathers do. And in 23 years, I said, she's paid back exactly $0. Not one payment on the house loan I gave her. Not one reimbursement for the school fees. Nothing. Bernard was quiet for a moment. You know that gifts don't legally require repayment. I know. But they do require something, Bernard. Respect, maybe. Honesty. The basic decency to not throw a party with my money and then lie to my grandchildren about why I wasn't there. What about Mackenzie and Owen? That was the question that had kept me up for 3 nights straight. Mackenzie was 24. Working as a nurse at Foothills Hospital. Owen was 21, in his 3rd year at UBC studying environmental science. Good kids, smart kids. Kids who'd given me hugs at Christmas and sent thank you cards for birthday checks. Kids who'd been at that resort, eating $42,000 catered food, and hadn't once asked their mother why Grandpa Douglas wasn't there. Set up education trusts, I said finally. $25,000 each. Accessible only for graduate school or professional development, not accessible to their parents. Everything else goes to Margaret and the charities. And the house? I looked out at the Bow River. Susan and I had bought this house in 1981, raised Patricia here, built a life here, the Calgary Women's Shelter. Susan volunteered there for 15 years. They can sell it and use the funds however they need. Bernard made notes. This will be quite a shock to Patricia. Good. Douglas. She threw a party celebrating my marriage without inviting me. Bernard. She took my money and lied to my grandchildren. I think a little shock is warranted. He nodded slowly. I'll draft the new documents. But Douglas, I'd recommend not telling Patricia about this yet. Make sure this is what you want. Give yourself time. How much time did Patricia give me to attend my own anniversary celebration? I stopped answering Patricia's calls. She left voicemails. First apologetic, then confused, then annoyed. Dad, you're being ridiculous. Can we please just talk about this like adults? Dad, Graham thinks you're overreacting. It was one weekend. Dad, Mackenzie wants to see you. Are you really going to punish your granddaughter because of this? I deleted them all. I also stopped the automatic transfers. For 3 years, I'd been sending Patricia $1,500 a month, just to help with expenses. Dad, Calgary's so expensive now. That stopped. The joint credit card I'd given her for emergencies, I called the bank and canceled it. 2 weeks after I met with Bernard, Patricia showed up at my door. It was a Saturday morning. I was having coffee on the back deck, reading the Herald, enjoying the June sunshine. The doorbell rang, then rang again, then someone started knocking. I knew it was her. I could feel it. I opened the door. Patricia stood there in her yoga clothes, her hair pulled back, her face tight with that particular expression she got when things weren't going her way. Graham was in the car at the curb, watching. "We need to talk," she said. "I don't think we do." "Dad, this is insane. You're cutting me off over one misunderstanding? Is that what we're calling it? A misunderstanding? What do you want me to say? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. But you're acting like I committed some horrible crime. You took $42,000 from me for a celebration of my marriage, and then didn't invite me. What would you call that? A poor decision, one I apologized for. No, Patricia. You explained it. You justified it. You never actually apologized. She blinked. I said I was sorry. You said I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology. That's you making my feelings my problem. This is unbelievable. She crossed her arms. Fine. You want a proper apology? I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry we didn't invite you. It was wrong. Is that what you wanted to hear? 3 weeks ago. Yes. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. But you know what I learned in those 3 weeks, Patricia? I learned that I've been waiting my whole life for you to say thank you. Really say it. Not just the words, but to actually show me that you appreciate what I've done for you. I do appreciate it. When's the last time you paid me back for anything? She froze. What? The house down payment, the wedding, the schools, the cars, the renovations, the vacations. When's the last time you made a payment on any of it? Those were gifts. You never said I had to pay you back. You're right. They were gifts, and I gave them freely. But gifts are supposed to be part of a relationship, Patricia. They're supposed to flow both ways. You know what I've gotten from you in 23 years? Cards on Father's Day? That's it. Store-bought cards with your signature. That's not fair. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about fair. You make $85,000 a year as a real estate agent. Graham makes $60,000 at the oil company. Combined, you earn more than I ever did at the height of my career. And yet, somehow, you can never afford anything. We have expenses. The kids. The kids are adults now, Patricia. Mackenzie has her own apartment. Owen lives in residence. What expenses? She didn't answer. You spent my money on a party I paid for, didn't invite me, and lied to your children about where I was. And now you're standing on my doorstep, not because you miss me or because you feel guilty, but because your credit card stopped working and your monthly deposit didn't come through. Her face went red. Is that what you think? That I'm only here for money? Am I wrong? The silence stretched between us. I can't believe you'd think so little of me, she finally said. I can't believe you'd treat me like an ATM and expect me to be grateful for it. She turned and walked away. Got in the car with Graham. They drove off. I stood in my doorway and felt nothing. No guilt, no regret. Just a strange sort of emptiness where the obligation used to be. The next contact came from Mackenzie. She called on a Wednesday evening. Grandpa, it's Kenzie. My heart still melted when I heard her voice. 24 years old, and she still called me Grandpa. Hi, sweetheart. Mom told me you guys had a fight. Did she tell you what about? A pause. She said it was complicated. Something about the anniversary party. Did your mother tell you I paid for that party? She said you helped with it. Yeah. I paid $42,000 for it, Mackenzie. The whole thing. And then your mother didn't invite me. I could hear her breathing on the other end. I didn't know that. What did she tell you? About why I wasn't there? She said you weren't feeling well, that you thought the travel would be too much. I live an hour and a half from Lake Louise. Kinsey. Your mother lives farther away than I do. Another long pause. Grandpa, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. This isn't your fault. But I need you to understand something. I love you. I love your brother. But I'm 66 years old, and I spent 6 years taking care of your grandmother while she died from cancer. I watched the strongest woman I ever knew waste away to 90 pounds. I held her hand when she took her last breath, and the celebration of the life we built together happened without me, because your mother thought it would be awkward. I heard her crying softly. I'm not angry at you, I continued. But I need you to know the truth. I need someone in this family to know the truth. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. Thank you, sweetheart. That means more than you know. We talked for another 20 minutes. She told me about work, about the difficult patients, and the good days. I told her about the garden I was planning, Susan's old garden that I'd let go wild after she died. Maybe I could come help, Mackenzie said. I've got a Saturday off next month. I'd like that very much. After we hung up, I sat in Susan's chair, the reading chair by the window where she'd spent countless evenings with her books. I could almost see her there, glasses perched on her nose, occasionally reading passages out loud to me. Did I do the right thing? I asked the empty room. Of course, she didn't answer. But I thought I knew what she'd say. You can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, Douglas. Not even our daughter. Susan had seen it too, near the end. Patricia visiting the hospital, always with some crisis that needed money. Susan had squeezed my hand one day after Patricia left. You're going to have to stop, she'd whispered. Stop what? Being her solution to everything. She'll never learn if you keep solving her problems. She's our daughter. She's a grown woman. And you're teaching her that love means money. I'd promised Susan I'd think about it. But then she died, and I was alone. And when Patricia called, crying about the mortgage payment, or the car repair, or the school fees, it was easier to just say yes. Easier to write the check than to have the hard conversation. But easy hadn't made things better. Easy had made things worse. The letter came 4 weeks later. Not from Patricia, from Graham. It was handwritten, which surprised me. 3 pages on legal pad paper. Douglas, I need to be honest with you about something I should have told you years ago. Patricia has a spending problem. Not the kind that's medical or diagnosable, but the kind where she genuinely believes she deserves a certain lifestyle, regardless of what we can actually afford. When we got married, I thought it was normal. Young couple, wanting nice things. But it never stopped. The house had to be in Mount Royal. The kids had to go to private school. The cars had to be new. The vacations had to be exotic. And every time I said we couldn't afford something, she'd say, I'll ask Dad. I went along with it because it was easier than fighting. Because I loved her and I wanted to make her happy. Because I thought maybe if I worked harder, made more money, eventually we'd get to a place where we didn't need your help. But we never did. Because every time I got a raise, Patricia found something more expensive to want. The anniversary party was my idea. I thought if we did something big to celebrate you and Susan, maybe Patricia would finally see how much you'd done for us. Maybe she'd realize it was time to stand on our own. But when it came time to invite you, she panicked. She said you'd want to talk about money, about all the loans, about when we were going to pay you back. She said it would ruin the whole weekend. I should have insisted. I should have told her we'd cancel the whole thing if we couldn't invite you. But I didn't. I took the coward's way out. I'm not asking you to forgive us or to change your mind about whatever you've decided. I just wanted you to know that I know what we did was wrong, and I'm sorry. Graham. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. It didn't change anything, but it helped to know that someone in that family understood. Owen called in July. He was home from UBC for the summer, working at a youth camp in Kananaskis. Hey, Grandpa, I heard things are weird with you and Mom. That's one way to put it. She won't tell me what happened. Just says you had a disagreement. I told him. The whole thing. The money, the party, the years of enabling. All of it. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I didn't know, he finally said, about any of it. I thought you were just generous. I was? Too generous. No. His voice was firm. Don't say that. You helped me go to UBC. Do you know what that means to me? I'm studying climate science because you made it possible. I'm going to spend my life trying to fix the mess my generation inherited, and I can do that because you believed in me. My throat got tight. But Grandpa, Mom shouldn't have done what she did. The party thing. That was messed up. Thank you, Owen. Are you going to be okay? Like, financially and stuff? I almost laughed. I'm fine, buddy. More than fine. Your grandmother and I saved well. I have a good pension. I'm not worried about money. What are you worried about? The question caught me off guard. I'm worried that I spent so long being useful that I forgot to just be loved. I love you, Grandpa. Not because of what you give me, because of who you are. I had to set the phone down for a minute after that. Patricia tried one more time in August. She called on what would have been Susan's 72nd birthday. I thought we could go to the cemetery together, she said. Put flowers on Mom's grave. Maybe grab lunch after? What time were you thinking? Around 11? I'll be there at 9. Alone. Dad, you don't get to use your mother's memory to manipulate me into forgiving you, Patricia. That's not what I'm doing. Yes, it is. And it's beneath you. I hung up. I went to the cemetery at 9. Like I said. Brought Susan's favorite flowers, pale pink peonies. Sat on the bench next to her headstone and talked to her the way I did every week. She's trying, I told her. But she's still trying in all the wrong ways. A breeze moved through the trees. I miss you, I said. I miss having someone who loved me without needing something from me. I stayed until almost noon. Patricia never showed up. Bernard called in September to tell me the new will was finalized and filed. How are you doing, Douglas? Better than I expected, actually. And Patricia? We don't talk much. Mackenzie visits sometimes. Owen calls every couple weeks. It's enough. No regrets? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said. I regret enabling her for so long. I regret teaching her that money was how I showed love. But cutting her off? No. That I don't regret. Good. You deserve peace, Douglas. Peace. That was the word for it. My days were quieter now. I'd started volunteering at the senior center downtown, teaching woodworking classes. Started going to the symphony again, something Susan and I used to do that I'd stopped after she died. Started having coffee with Sheila every Wednesday morning, just talking about normal things like the weather and the news and what we were reading. Started living like I was a person, not just a bank account. In October, Mackenzie came over to help with the garden, like she'd promised. We spent a Saturday afternoon pulling weeds, planting bulbs for spring, trimming back the roses Susan had loved. Mom asked me to talk to you, Mackenzie said, as we worked. Did she? She wants to know what it would take for you to forgive her. I sat back on my heels, dirt on my hands, the October sun warm on my face. Tell your mother that forgiveness isn't something she can purchase or negotiate for. Tell her that if she wants a relationship with me, it starts with her being honest about the money, about why she did what she did, about what she actually wants from me that isn't financial. She says she wants her dad back. Then she needs to figure out which dad she wants. The one who writes checks, or the one who's a person. Mackenzie was quiet, patting soil around a cluster of tulip bulbs. Can I ask you something, Grandpa? Always. Do you think I'm like her? Like Mom? I looked at my granddaughter, 24 years old, working night shifts at the hospital, living in a tiny apartment she could barely afford, and she'd never once asked me for money. Not once. No, sweetheart, you're like your grandmother. She smiled, a real smile. Then she hugged me, getting dirt all over both of us. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, Kenzie. We finished the garden as the sun started to set. I sent her home with some of Susan's old recipe books, and a promise to have dinner together next month. After she left, I stood in the garden and looked at what we'd accomplished. It wasn't much yet, just some turned earth and planted bulbs that wouldn't bloom until spring. But it was something, a beginning. That night, I pulled out the old photo albums, found a picture of Susan and me on our actual 50th anniversary of our first date. We'd gone to the same restaurant where I'd proposed, ordered the same meal, held hands across the table like teenagers. She died 3 months later. I'd thought I needed the big celebration to honor her. The resort, the catering, the photographer. I'd thought spending money meant showing love. But Susan wouldn't have wanted the resort. She would have wanted a garden and a granddaughter's laughter and quiet mornings with coffee and the newspaper. She would have wanted exactly what I had now. I thought about Patricia sometimes, about whether she'd ever understand, about whether there was a path back to something resembling a relationship. I didn't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I'd learned something important in these months of silence. I could survive her disappointment. I could survive her anger. I could survive being the bad guy in her story. What I couldn't survive, what I wouldn't survive, was spending the rest of my life being treated like I was only valuable when I was useful. Susan used to say that the best gift you can give someone is the truth, even when it hurts, even when it costs you something. I'd finally given Patricia the truth, that I was a person, not a bank, that love wasn't measured in dollars, that respect and appreciation weren't optional extras in a parent-child relationship, they were the foundation. Whether she ever accepted that truth wasn't something I could control. But I could control this, how I spent the time I had left, who I gave my energy to, what I allowed in my life. And I chose peace. I chose boundaries. I chose the garden and the symphony and the woodworking classes and the grandchildren who loved me for who I was, not what I could give them. I chose to stop setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Because here's what I finally understood. At 66 years old, generosity without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. And teaching someone that they can take without giving, demand without appreciating, hurt without consequences, that's not doing them a favor. That's crippling them. The kindest thing I could do for Patricia was to stop being her solution. The kindest thing I could do for myself was to start being enough, just as I was. And if that made me selfish in her eyes, then so be it. I'd rather be selfish and respected than generous and invisible. I'd rather have peace than money in someone else's pocket and chaos in my heart. I'd rather spend my remaining years knowing I stood up for myself than die having spent a lifetime lying down for everyone else. That's what Susan would have wanted. And finally, after all these years, that's what I wanted too.